Ologies. Bugs. Hey y'all, we're back. Here we are at Green Thread. It's Alexis
And Allie.
and Allie. I have a really fun fact for you today.
Okay.
Did you know that grasshoppers existed before dinosaurs?
I did not know that.
The fossil record shows that there are primitive grasshoppers that appeared during the Carboniferous period 300 million years ago.
Did they look any different than they did now? What they do now?
I don't know. It seemed like it's just like I don't know how to describe it. We'll insert a photo for our watchers, but it's like a primitive version. I mean, that's just like the best way, like a prototype, I guess.
Interesting.
Of grasshoppers, if you want to put it that way. But welcome everyone to a new series we're starting today. Welcome to the Ologies. Today we'll be talking about entomology. If you're listening, you have missed my fun fact about grasshoppers, so go watch the YouTube video if you want to hear a fun fact about it. So entomology sounds like a little bit of a scary word if you have never heard it before. It's like, what is that? I've never heard that before. Entomology is the study of insects. So you may be wondering what is considered an insect. Great question. So insects belong to the phylum Arthropoda. They're arthropods, and then insects are like a little bit more narrowed down version of that. Also, I'm wearing a shirt with a spider on it, and a spider is not an insect. It is an arachnid. It is also an arthropod. It is in the phylum Arthropoda, but it is an arachnid, not an insect. So don't call spiders insects. But they are classified by their body plans being divided into 3 different sections: the head, thorax, and abdomen. And they usually have 6 legs and usually 1 or 2 pairs of wings. So that is generally what classifies an insect. Also, they have an exoskeleton made of chitin, which chitin is like, I don't know how to explain it. I've learned about it so many times, and I don't know. I can't explain. I know what it is, but I can't explain it.
Like a not epidermis, but like some sort of like outlayer, like skin type. Is that what you're gonna?
Yeah. So chitin is just like a I don't know if you've ever seen. There's maybe like a cicada or something. It's got like that mold that it leaves behind almost of itself. That is chitin. It's like and also, I'm sorry if this is like totally wrong. I'm sorry. I should have clarified this with myself before I started talking. But anyway, that is just kind of some basic identifiers of what an insect is and what is under the umbrella of entomology.
That's really crazy. I know the first thing that I learned was about the segments and everything, and how like entomon was like the notched, like it meant notched, so that's where like entomology came from. But then I was like, well, when did this start? Like we always wonder, like when was this found? Like who did it? Who done it? And I did find that in the 4th century BCE, Aristotle was known to be the first one to like provide a description of insect anatomy, which is where the like foundation of the study of insects came from. Though most modern insect classifications began in the later 18th century by a French biologist, which I will put the name on the screen because for those watching,
French names.
Yeah, I can't. And they contributed to some volumes which are called the Memoirs, serving as a history of insects, which also is in French, obviously, but that was the English translation. And I was like, interesting. So they came, like, there's a base foundation of just like a visual learn, and that's where it's like interesting to see how people kind of start out learning about new subjects in science, is like mostly through visuals. Like we always talk about like journaling, and we like draw pictures of animals, and kind of gives us a better understanding of that species, and that's kind of the same thing. However, back to what we were talking about in our previous episode about where is the person that we talked about being the first person really the first person, because I mean the 4th century to the 18th century, that's a big difference. So who's in the middle, and like what actually started? And I did find someone by the name of Maria Sibylla Marion, and Marion, she was in 1647 to 1717, and she is known as the mother of entomology.
Yes, mother of entomology. Not father, mother.
Yeah, mama insect. But she was one of the like main people that after Aristotle that used drawings to like help I guess they laid the foundation for future knowledge about, especially the developmental stages, because she was most known for drawing like the larval stages all the way up to their end result, if you will. But that was really cool to see that her contributions were used probably for the French biologists later on. There's also someone, which just goes into the father of entomology, which is where it all gets a little gray in terms of who coined it first. But William Kirby is also another really well known name in the entomology field. He was living between 1759 and 1850. And he was known as the father of entomology because he helped with the Entomological Society of London. He also later became the president of a museum, which I'll put the name on the screen for the viewers, as well as laying a basis foundation for identification, like actual taxon. And he also co-produced a book called An Intro to Entomology, which has been used through generations on how to classify like different insects, which I think is pretty amazing, even though he's a man. But I think that's really cool to see that we started out and we went for it like real quick, and now see where we are today, which we'll talk about later in the episode. But like that's really crazy to see how the evolution, even just of entomology itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Entomology has come a long way, it seems. And entomology has always like been so interesting to me. Even I don't know, as I've gotten older, it's become a little bit more interesting because people are like, bugs. Ugh, who wants to study
Yeah.
bugs and pick up bugs? Ugh, that's nasty. It's not nasty. Okay, it's important. Everything is important, as we always say. I wanted to also give some examples of types of insects that are considered insects. So butterflies, ants, beetles, crickets, flies, etc. Anything under that list or category, moths as well, those are considered insects. So now you know what is considered an insect. And insects are also invertebrates. So that's another kind of classification tool that you can use. And going back to just identification and the first kind of advancements in entomology with drawings and drawing them at their different stages, that kind of ties into weaving in different fields. And especially me, all the time I'm talking about my art background. So that is something very important as well, because if you're going to do that, and especially in a time where there was not technology and you couldn't just look up a picture of something or take a photo of something, you had to have an accurate enough drawing to where people knew what they were looking at, and it could be very detailed. It needs to be very detail oriented, very specific, because if you draw something wrong, that may have, accidentally gotten carried on all the way till today, and we might not even, without technology and photos of things, it could have been totally skewed and totally wrong of what we thought, a beetle may have looked like or something, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I can only like imagine what they look like drawing the insect, because I know they had to use a magnifying glass for a lot of different species. So imagining like them down on the ground with their little magnifying glass looking through, like trying to get all those little details, like that's gotta have been hard. But it's important and vital for, like you said, like future people to kind of know just how like detailed they are, like what can classify species for later on, because like we're finding that there's two bugs or insects that look similar, but they might be very, very different in a completely different species because of one little tiny marking on their belly or their legs or just on their back, even, especially for like butterflies and whatnot. So it's just like it's very, very important. Which I guess all this to say, what's important about entomology? Why does that carry any emphasis in the science field? And that's a great question. And honestly, you named the species I was going to name for one of my points, because that being pollinators.
Yes.
So learning about like bugs and insects is really important to learn about pollination. And also improving pesticide management, because a lot of people, like we were talking about, where you mentioned like people say ew bugs, and so that's really common in like the agricultural field, and like farmers are like get off my crops. But it's like, okay, but also some insects are their own biological pest management system, so like that you don't have to use pesticides and other chemicals on your plants that all in all go into humans, just to keep away the things that are keeping away other things. So it's like things keeping away other things. I don't know. That was the best way I could put it. But also in like recent history, they're known for being a part in forensics. People will use them with legal situations like criminal activity, even civil activity, just like because a lot of times, at least with like flies and other things that suck blood, sorry, um, they, the blood that's in their body can be used to find, like DNA matches and whatnot. So they are really important even in forensics, which plays another part of another sort of the science field. And then also along with like talking about pollinators, they're good with like food sources and insect-borne diseases. So like ticks and things like that. We learn more about how we can protect our health from bugs by learning about them. So it's just like you can't know things unless you know about what you want to know about. So I don't know why people would question why we need to know about entomology when there's so many branches that come off of it that give us answers to things that you know now. So get with it.
Yeah, get with it. Get educated. Like we always say, knowledge is power, and that can make you a little bit less afraid too. Sometimes, a fear is just a misunderstanding or a lack of knowledge. So if you want to, maybe watch a YouTube video about an insect that you're kind of afraid of, if some bees or something, then that may help you a little bit to be like, okay, they're not just solely seeking me and hurting me. Like they have their own job. Not everything's about you. Sorry, that's really mean, but it's true. Not everything's about you. Bees have their, and just any insect in general, they have their own world, their own job to do. They are not focused on you, so don't sweat it. I wanted to bring up with entomology, I wanted to bring up pinning insects.
Yes.
I actually pinned my first insect this past summer. I haven't done one since then because I don't know. It just happened by complete chance. I was at the pool with my family, and I see this. As I'm talking, I did remember the name of the moth that I pinned. It's an imperial moth. It is. Anyway, it's a moth, and it was just floating in the pool, like literally drenched. I mean, I don't know how long it had been there, and I'm like, oh, look at this little guy, and I'm like picking him up out of the water, and it is a male. I did identify it, and I took it home with me, and unfortunately it was dead. But I was like, you know what? I want to do something fun with this, preserve his little memory and keep his memory alive. And
Aw.
I ordered a little kit, and now he is pinned on my wall. We will insert a photo for our viewers on YouTube, so you can see my final product. But that is an art. That's a skill to pin some insects. Let me
Yes.
tell you, I had to be so gentle and careful, and unfortunately, like the corner of a wing or something got chipped off while I was trying to just spread it after it had dried out because it's just so dry. But pinning insects may be something that not everyone is interested in, but it is also something that is very vital to records of entomology and for future education and just for knowledge of entomology, knowledge of insects, because you can learn so much from visuals and from actually seeing this thing and just having it pinned and tucked away somewhere where it's going to be preserved is really, really awesome because then it could be studied for generations.
Yeah, exactly. That goes right back into like the taxon stuff that you can learn about the different species, what they look like, and what little tiny detail differentiates them. Which is really cool. I love seeing moths. They're like the most like purest form to me of any insect, and that kind of reminds me when I was at KSU, we in my club had a guest speaker. I won't like dox his name in case he doesn't want publicity, but there was a bee researcher who we had as a guest speaker, and he came in and he had his own like pinned specimen, and it went throughout like all like taxon or taxa of bees all the way to wasps. And it was really insane to like pick the pins up and look at them because like did you know there's a thing as a green bee? There's a thing as a green bee. And it is like a fluorescent green bee. It's really cool. And he had a bunch of those, and they're really tiny, really, really small. And so, like, picking up the pen and looking at them was really cool. And then he also brought in some specimen of bees that he had like found all over the campus because unfortunately they do die and they'll just like lay there, and I love like just picking them up and seeing what they looked like. and he brought some in and he allowed us to learn how to pin them. And like you said, it is a talent and it is really hard because you do have to be very gentle, but you also have to apply just enough pressure to
Mm-hmm.
get the pin through. And all this to say, it might sound like, oh my God, why are you pinning things? Like I can understand where you're coming from, but it's, there are different times where it is warranted and also needed, especially with learning about them and making sure that we're not naming things the wrong way or identifying them to be under the wrong family or genus. So it's very important. And that kind of leads me into like how I was going to talk about like insects and their role in the climate crisis, because then when you're like looking at the specimen, kind of seeing them and learning about them, you can also learn how they can be identification drivers for their role in a climate crisis. So like most people use them as like sustainable or agricultural practice identifiers because they're, like I said earlier, they're biological pest controls. They also learn about like biodiversity within that. You can also understand plant to insect relationships, which is really important. We briefly talked about that in our episode about like the interconnection between all species. So that was one thing that we kind of brought in for that. And then they also, which I think is so cool, are bioindicators for climate change because they can predict how an ecosystem is able to change and its resilience to some biofactors and just a bunch of different things that can go all the way down to like the nitty gritty parts that you didn't think that you could find from a single like ant, for instance. And also they can help with like predicting future models for how the areas really respond and change to global temperature rising and just any factors that come along with like climate. And to see that such a small thing plays a huge role just reminds us that we might feel small sometimes, but we play a bigger role. And I just wanted to compare the two between humans and insects. But that you talking about pinning and just like looking and identifying and preserving are key reasons why it's important to know how it plays a part in learning about how they play a part in climate.
Absolutely. And another way that they kind of play a part in different ecosystems and with the climate crisis is there are, I didn't really touch on this in our forest episode, but they play a huge role in being a large disturbance for forests. So,
Yes.
in recent years, especially in the western United States, there has been an insect called the pine beetle, and it has really attacked a specific pine tree out west, and it just absolutely decimates an area. It just takes it out because those insects, they can reproduce so quickly and
Right.
uh so many at one time that it just absolutely wipes the trees out. The trees can't keep up with, plants, a seed being dropped somewhere and then taking years to grow and getting healthy and strong in order to keep up with the insects that are popping out just left and right. So that can be a huge, huge issue negatively with insects, but they can also be a great bioindicator. Like you were saying, some insects are more um, was more resistant to things like pollution or depending on temperature, things like that. They can be good bioindicators of, okay, how polluted is this river? How polluted is this forest? So that way you can kind of get a gauge of the environmental health of the area. And by the way, as I'm talking, I did remember the name of the moth that I pinned. It's an imperial moth. They are brown and yellow. I did, in fact, name mine SpongeBob because of that. But anyway, insects play a humongous role in so many ways in forests, in any type of area, which they are more common in, like, if I'm thinking about the different biomes going up and down, like, the earth, going from pole to pole, they would be more common, like, around the equator because it is hotter and warmer, wetter. They typically prefer those types of environments versus, like, the Arctic. You're not really gonna, find any up there. If you wanted to go looking, I'm sorry to break your heart and be the bearer of bad news, but don't go to the Arctic to look for insects. But yeah, all that to say that insects play an absolutely vital role, in entomology, like every other field, is evolving every single day, and we learn more and more about insects all the time. And like you were saying earlier, one little detail, one little color change, one little, an extra set of legs or something that can totally change the identification, and it could give us something brand new.
That literally, when I had my aquatic ecology class, which shout out to Georgia Highlands again for that, but that was one of the main things that we would learn is the difference in like physical identification between species. If I could just describe to you how many species of insects are found in a single creek, you might never step foot in a creek ever again because oh my god, you literally can like take a net and just like scoop through and then put it in a bucket and let it sit for a second as they're all like freaking out and trying to figure out where the heck they are. But then once you like actually come to see them, there's so many and they're so small and they're so different, even though they all look the same in some aspect. Some are beetles and some are not, or like depending on the stage that they're in development. But like most of the time, it's so easy to tell the difference, and to see how many there are is just crazy. I think there's a statistic that I have seen before, and I'm not going to say the numbers because I know I'm wrong, but where there's like the ratio between bugs on Earth and humans, and they outnumber us by millions, quadrillions. I don't so
Easily.
many. Yeah.
Easily.
So they're everywhere, and that's why it's also important to know about them because when you get one in your house, if you ever see, I literally could tell you there's 2 dead bugs behind Alexis right now on the floor.
They're keeping me company.
Yeah, there are spirit guides. And I don't have the heart to like put them anywhere because they're just here, and also they look a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like centipedes, and I think they're a species of centipede. But anyways, my point being that if you see one in your house, I know that you've seen like probably Australians are more prone to getting like bigger insects and like having to have a hard shell of putting them in a container and putting them outside. But as far as like ones you see in your house around the US, like please don't just like squish it because I I don't know how much I can emphasize that that one little insect is really important to its ecosystem, and it doesn't know where it is. It doesn't know that that's your house. Like it's not there by choice. Either you have a hole in your floor or something else is happening because it's not their fault. And I just wish that they had a better reputation within the science and environmental field. Same with, other species that are more prone to have a negative like connotation, but I really want I want justice for bugs because they deserve a better reputation.
They do. They get such a bad rap, and we need to change that. We need to change that. They really are good guys, good guys, gals, everyone. As I get further into this field, I do find myself having more of a heart for little creatures because I'm like, they didn't ask for this, and they don't know they're in my house. They were here first. Okay.
Yes.
We have invaded their house by building stuff everywhere, and they're like, what happened to the millions of acres that I was just flying around, and now there's like stuff all in the way? What the heck?
It's like your grasshopper thing from the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
they were here definitely
They
first.
were here way before us, I can tell you that much. So I encourage you to be mindful to little dudes and little guys, and just have a little bit of compassion for them.
Yep. Well, this is the first episode of our Ology series, and I'm so excited to get into it because there's so many ologies out there. Getting to catch a bad case of the ologies, as Alexis said before the episode. But I really encourage you to continue dropping in on this series and give it a subscribe because I really want this to be a big thing. I think it'd be really cool to talk about bugs more, but also just anything else that we're going to be talking about. And we will definitely see you next time.
See you next time.